Hey, what's up guys? This is Church of Caboose, and in today's Destiny 2 video, we're going to talk briefly about the Crimson Days event that starts tomorrow on February 11th and ends on the 17th, but most of this video's focus is going to be on the upcoming changes to Sword. Or I guess sword, weapon, swords, I don't know, English is rough. Anyways, I read through the TWAB, which means This Week at Bungie article, and it took a few days to think about what I thought about the changes, and we're going to kind of go through what those changes are, give you some opinions, and that'll be the video. So just real quick, Crimson Days is coming up. It is an event that is a celebration of love. Basically, all the bounties and usually like triumphs and all that good stuff is based on 2v2 kinds of things, or doing PvE events with one other person in fire teams of 2. Crimson Days is usually most popular for having 2v2 doubles, and not Crucible doubles match thing. You usually get some kind of an ability, a little buff thing, where you get ability regen is increased as long as you stay close to your partner. So if you're going to be going into that Crucible, I'd highly suggest you hop on a hunter, you and your fire team use Shinobu's Vow, and just have fun with those good old arc grenades, because you will get a ton of them. There's also a new slew of loot, and it includes all previous loot pools from past Crimson Days. So if you're new to Destiny, you can get a lot of the old gear. The new gear is 2 exotic sparrows and a new ghost shell, from what I was able to read from the TWAB. And my understanding of the TWAB is that we are going to have bounties that are double XP, and all of the bounties that are daily and weekly will give you double the experience, as well as Bright Dust. So if you're trying to level up your season rank, this is a great week to get that season rank leveled up. And just so you know, how you traditionally have gotten these loot rewards is you will have specific rewards where you have to save up so much of a currency you get from Crimson Days, or you turn in that currency and you get packages, and those packages have a chance of dropping you the loot. Usually the currency is specific for Crimson Days, and you'll get them when you complete matches and turn in bounties. And so if I find any nifty tricks to speed things up and boost getting those set rewards that require you to save those currencies from Crimson Days, I will do a video and let you guys know. I'm also going to be hunting down those triumphs, because I am insane, and for some reason I now do every single triumph of each event that pops up, because in my head I'm like, what if they do a title that requires you to have completed every single triumph of each event? And so my I guess paranoia has gotten the better of me. So I'll be hunting down all of those triumphs, and if there's any nifty little tips and tricks, I will be sure to let you guys know for those triumphs, as well as the rewards later on this week for Crimson Days. Now for the meat and potatoes of this video, we're talking about swords. Swords are getting some huge changes in the near future. The TWAB didn't say specifically when. It did seem to me to indicate the changes will be coming either when the Season of the Worthy is released, or perhaps early on, but the TWAB did just say over the next coming weeks they will be talking and addressing some issues, and this is the plan for swords they have laid out. Now I'm going to be reading from screenshots of the TWAB. I'll be giving you kind of like skim reading, so that way you guys can pause the video if you want to read the whole thing. I also will have a link for this TWAB down below, so if you feel like I went too fast or didn't give you enough information, you can just click on the link and just verify or just read for yourselves all the information that I am giving you. And of course the TWAB has more than what this video is about, but we're going to mostly focus on the sword. So let's go ahead and bring in some of those screenshots and start looking at the changes. Alright, so the TWAB kicks off by saying that we're a little over a month out from the next season. Things like swords are sharp, some are blunt, one lets you bend space and time, another has projectiles, blah 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 blah. And they're basically doing things to kick around ideas to make swords more enticing, because they've noticed that swords aren't really used and the functionality of swords has not been great. So the first screenshot, so after some brainstorming and development time, swords are receiving a sort of table flip when it comes to light attacks, heavy attacks, and guarding. While you'll still rip and tear through opponents as you would expect from a sword, most of what you know needs to be unlearned. The blades have been rebalanced, and new energy meter is making its way to swords. Below, you'll find a full rundown from our development team. So let's take a look at what I guess all of those things are that they just mentioned, and see how they are getting changed. Alright, so let's look at sword energy. Swords now have their own reserve of energy that recharges naturally on its own. and is not to be confused with ammo capacity. This energy will overtake your melee slot while you're wielding a sword and is spent on various actions. So let's find out what those actions are. Guarding. Guarding now uses sword energy instead of consuming ammo. Different guards have different consumption rates, damage resistance, and behavior. So I guess be sure to experiment and figure out what type you'll like. You'll still need at least one ammo to begin guarding though. It talks about ways it did during the Drifter, such as the Stronghold exotic, which we'll get into later, which was allowing Titans to basically guard without like using any ammo. And I guess they found it opened up some interesting opportunities for swords to shine, which is interesting because I don't know a single Destiny player, myself included, that thought the Stronghold exotic was worth anything. But apparently Bungie is basing some of what they're doing with guarding based off of the Stronghold exotic, and we will look at that a little bit later here in the video. But at the end it says, rest easy. Stronghold also has been modified to still allow Titans a unique guarding experience. So since Bungie did say something about there being different types of guards, not sure what those will be from this TWAB, but I would assume that we will learn more as we get closer to the Season of the Worthy, or as maybe those season releases. But for now, I've got no clue about what these different guard types are. I imagine there'll be maybe something kind of like block all incoming damage, or like a mini bubble shield. I don't know. They could get pretty creative with this. We'll just have to wait and find out. Alright, so now we're just going to look what Bungie has to say about the light and heavy attacks for swords. So there's a TWAB. I'm just going to try and sum it up for you guys. Basically, light attacks, you have an infinite combo loop. So when I read through this, to me it sounds like you get to go shing, 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 shing as much as you want for the light attack, instead of having like 1, 2, 3 and they have to like restart the whole combo over. And then it looks like from this, you don't need to have ammo. It just says at the top, grounded light attacks for all swords will now loop for an infinite combo, and all swords can cleave. So it doesn't seem like you need to have ammo or energy for light attacks, and it's just kind of an infinite looping thing, and all swords now have cleaving on light attacks, which I guess before they were only on the aggressive sword frame. So there you go. For heavy attacks now will consume sword energy. So again, don't need ammo, only need ammo to guard so far. While you're always able to perform a heavy attack, the attack is stronger when you have full energy and weaker when you don't. It talks about then a lot of swords having situations where basically everyone using a sword only mash the heavy attack, and Bungie's like, nah, stop that. We don't want that. We want to make things more interesting for you, so we're going to give you a reason to use your lights and heavy attacks. So now let's talk about shield bypasses. So for a shield bypass, a portion of your sword attack can be partially bypassed elemental shields. We added this to give swords a little bit of personality difference from shotguns, who share a very similar role in combat as powerful close quarters combat weapons. In general, swords have also had some of the damage amounts for different attacks changed, and various sword perks have been adjusted. So basically, play with a sword, figure out what you like, and use it. So let's kind of give you my reactions a little bit to it, then I'll give you some concerns, and we'll talk about that Stronghold Titan exotic that I mentioned earlier. Alright, so my takeaway from that TWAB is that swords are going to be more like swords in real life. It would seem that swords will have more or less an infinite ammo ability, because like you don't necessarily have to have ammo or have to have energy to do some of these abilities. The only thing it seems like is you have to have at least have one ammo to guard. Everything else you can still use the sword without having energy. It's just not as effective as having that energy. So I'm kind of curious to see how this plays out in the sandbox in PvE. Right now, swords aren't very meta, like we talked about in the TWAB. That Bungie is like, we want more people to use swords. We've noticed that when people do use swords, they only really use the heavy attack, and we tried to give swords more functionality with the Stronghold Titan exotic armor, and that still didn't seem to kind of have the end game we were hoping for. And so we're trying out this idea with all the energy efficiency switching around and all that stuff to see if that helps. I know for myself, I basically never use swords unless I'm really, really bored. I'm just trying to change something up. Like occasionally I'll use a sword for that. Otherwise, I mostly just use a sword only if a bounty or a quest line basically either says I have to use a sword, or if I'm working on something that maybe that it's just more efficient to get a bounty done to use a sword than it is to hop on an app and switch stuff around just because I'm a little bit lazy. And so like that's the only time I use a sword, and I definitely, for the most part, almost never use anything besides the heavy attack. So I get what they're saying. And one of the weird things with sword is, like, even though you don't have to reload, so you would think you could just like run into a horde of enemies, go ham, you just pick up ammo as you're destroying stuff without having to reload, and that'd be great, because like I love hopping in the middle of the mess, and my wife all the time says, "God, you're a Titan." And like that's just what I like doing. But having these changes of swords, the sword ammo and efficiencies and all that goodness might actually make using a sword a little bit more desirable and could boost their popularity. I might use swords a little bit more often as well. And I would imagine the swords will change our gameplay quite a bit. Bungie does show a trend of making changes to the community to get us to use weapons that we don't typically use. Or if we're using something way too much, they change it. Like Recluse, for example, they changed Recluse. Now, granted, they said Recluse was not supposed to do all headshot damage when you had a certain perk going, but like maybe they realized there was one season where we basically used nothing but Recluse, and they're like, all right, it's time to change this, guys. You guys are being ridiculous. Like I got 23,000 kills one season with Recluse. Like that means I was using it probably way too much. So then they also had thrown in a while back this exotic armor called the Stronghold, which was basically you just hold the guard and you don't lose ammo. You had increased movement while guarding, and you had infinite guard. Like that's what it was. So you could walk around just guarding yourself with it. But again, that wasn't even a huge enough deal where people were like, oh my gosh, you guys should use this instead of some other option just to keep yourself alive. But that was never a thing I really ever heard of, or that I was like, this would be better than using something else. Like, nah. Stronghold was pretty much useless, and I'm surprised I even had one on my character. I didn't have to pull it off collections. So there, I guess I'm a Titan main, so it's kind of weird. I never used Stronghold until I was getting footage specifically for this video. So I'm guessing right now Bungie's trying to get all of us to use swords, and they are doing that by changing up how the ammo works. So there's that. Stronghold looks kind of like a weird Three Musketeers kind of a thing, and hopefully this picture here real quick helps you out to see what it looks like. Alright, so that's what the Stronghold looks like. On the other arm that's not shown, and unfortunately in game it's pretty hard to see, it looks like he got this big old poofy glove like from the Three Musketeers. And so, I don't know, maybe just call it the Three Musketeer exotic. I don't know. But anyway, so that's what the Stronghold is. I did try to see if the Warlock and the Hunter had a sword-specific exotic armor. I could not find one. I went through my collections app on my phone, and I Google searched, and I was not able to find it. So if there is a Hunter and a Warlock exotic sword kind of themed armor piece, please let me know down below, and I will pin that message, so that way those of you that aren't Titan mains can have an idea of what sword exotic to use if you think you're going to love swords, since they are messing with the Stronghold. Maybe those other exotics I haven't found might be messed with. I don't know, but I'm guessing they don't exist because I couldn't find them, and Bungie didn't mention them in the TWAB. So we're going to now just show you two great exotic swords they talked about in the beginning of the TWAB when they talked about being able to bend time and throw projectiles. They were talking about the Worldline Zero and the Black Talon exotic swords. And they actually bring up some questions I have about how PvP is going to work. So let me just show you guys some pictures of what these two swords look like real quick. So right here is the Worldline Zero. This exotic sword lets you teleport with that Tesseract perk. Basically, you run and you hold the right trigger and you just go beep. You disappear through time and space and appear with a heavy attack, and you kill whatever it was that is when you pop up in time and space. So that's what they were talking about at the beginning of the TWAB. It is a pretty weapon. When you have the ornament for it, it looks very, very nice, and I enjoy it a lot. Unfortunately, there is a quest in order to get this. So it's not even a formal quest. You have to find resources and shoot boxes, and I don't know, it's such a long time ago. But anyways, you have to have the Warmind expansion on Mars in order to get this weapon. So if you are a free-to-play player, you did let me know down below, but you should be able to get this exotic sword. Just look up some videos about how to get the World Line 0 and just go from there. It might take you a little while, but it's a fun sword and it could totally be worth having since we're getting all these changes to how swords are going to work. So now let's look at the Black Talon, then I'll tell you guys why I'm skeptical about these two weapons in PvP. So there's the Black Talon. Again, it's beautiful. When you have on the ornament, it loses a little bit of that rainbow shimmer kind of a thing. But, you know, it still looks really, really cool. I like it a lot. I think it came with Forsaken, if I remember correctly. So this sword is RNG, and it does have a catalyst. And the main thing the sword does is you can throw projectiles with it. When you do your heavy attack, instead of doing a big old slash up, or something of that nature, you throw a projectile, which has been really nifty when you're trying to get sword kills, because you can just kind of sit back and the round tracks. It tracks pretty well, aggressively actually, which is pretty cool. So the Black Talon is a lot of fun, but it is RNG, and I have not figured out the best way to farm it. I would imagine the best way probably right now to farm it would be you do that Master Nightfall or the Nightfall that rewards a guaranteed exotic drop, just because exotic drops now are like faded engrams, so whatever character you're playing on, you will keep getting a new exotic when you get an exotic drop until you have all the exotics for that character, and then you'll start getting repeats. So make sure you're farming that Master Nightfall. Just play one time per week on each character, and maybe you'll get it, maybe you won't. I don't know. It's the bane of RNG. So let's talk about my skepticism, because I mentioned those two swords are why I'm skeptical. In PvP, those swords tend to dominate. If people are going to use a sword in PvP, they tend to pick the Black Talon over the World Line 0, but World Line 0 is probably a close second, because you have the ability to have some range with the sword and not have to be right in someone's face. You can just either throw a projectile with Black Talon or be sprinting and kind of get a couple of meters where you cut through space and time and just wreck the person, like Doctor Who hopping into one of those alternate realities or whatever it is that he does. And so I'm just getting kind of worried, like what happens with PvP? Like if you get these energy reboosts and we have basically infinite ammo, are folks going to be just crouching around corners constantly surprising you with swords? Or, because this is probably the more likely scenario, whenever Bungie messes with something, it either tends to get really broken in a way they somehow did not foresee or test out, or something else gets really broken in OP. So while having the sword change is going to be kind of cool, I'm just bracing for impact. Like for whenever we actually have this change go down, for people to be able to run around with swords the whole time, and swords will become the new shotgun, and we'll see. Like maybe if you don't have heavy ammo, your sword will only like do half damage. It won't be a one-hit kill. I don't know. We'll find out. This is something that Bungie is gonna should at least be aware. We're all expecting them to mess this up somehow. So hopefully the ammo economy and efficiency in PvP won't be that bad. Now for PvE, I don't give a crap. If the swords are broken for PvE, then great. Like our lives are easier. Like, I don't care if swords are way too strong in PvE. I mostly just care if they're way too strong in PvP, because then people are going to be coming at us with swords, and that's going to be interesting. Alright guys, that concludes the video. Thank you all so much for watching. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, and like if you're excited for the sword change, if you share my skepticism, or if you're like, nah, this is something else you should be worried about, or anything else that has to do with swords. If you want to suggest topics I cover, because we do have like a month until Season of the Worthy comes out, and so we got quite a bit of time with really not much content dropping, other than if Crimson Days gives me like, hey, this would be nifty for you guys to know, and I'll make sure I give you guys a video for that. But it only lasts for a week, so I'm not even sure, unless I can get on that really quick. You might not even have a whole lot of time to take advantage of that video anyways. But if you got ideas or questions, let me know. I'll do my best to answer them if I can answer them in your comment, or maybe I'll make a video about it and credit the idea to you when I make the video. You guys are all awesome. If you like this, please like and subscribe to my channel if I have to kind of keep up and see more of my content. You guys are great. I am Church of Caboose. Have a great week and happy grinding, y'all.